Hello everybody, this is Shannon from Best Built Customs. Just wanted to show you this 1968 International that's been getting worked on. I've done a lot of work to it so far. Everybody's been kind of bugging me to see kind of where it's at. So I'm just going to give you a quick video and tell you sort of where I'm at today. So, on this cab, I've completely media blasted this thing. Um, I have removed the old firewall and the floor pans, and I've hand fabricated pretty much everything that you see here. I ran into some problems when I was working on the outer cowl. I had some rust bubbles. I popped it open, and this is the underside of the cowl at this point, but I can show some pictures of how it was prior. It was completely filled with holes from the way they designed the air boxes to go in. I've basically made every piece of this. That discoloration is acid that's been treated over the bare metal. So last weekend I was working on this side just to do some final welding upon this floor pan section and of the toe boards and the firewall. Uh, Hand made all these side pieces, all the gutters. This side I had to make all the floor pan sections, the toe boards, the in between that, and I did a combination of TIG and MIG. So I also was going to show you guys kind of this section. That I actually made out of box tubing. The original floor was just sheet metal, but I wanted to give it a little bit more rigidity. This truck will be completely slammed to the floor with air ride suspension and LS, etc., etc. But I'm gonna pause it and go over to this other side and show you guys kind of what I'm doing here. Okay, so as you guys can see here, this inner structure, like the inner kick panel, I had to basically rebuild this whole section and redesign it just a tiny little bit to accommodate some custom floor pans. So this is another midsection of the floor. Basically slides down into here. This is a little bit tricky doing it with one hand. Give me 1 second. So I just moved some stuff out of the way, but this section here is kind of like the original floor pan was one piece that started here and went all the way up to the very top of the firewall where it was welded to the cowl. So to make this a little less complicated to build, since I don't have the original presses, I basically took what was remaining of the floor and made some paper templates and hand fabricated these pieces out on a sheet metal brake, and I used a dimple die set to pop the holes for where the body mounts go. So not too bad. I had to conform all the different shapes, but I didn't want to um, do a complete stitch weld on those areas, just because I think having the nice clean line with plug welds would look more original if somebody didn't really know and didn't pay attention. I also did hand fabricate the floor pan itself. I went ahead and threw in on the bead roller the International logo just to add the rigidity instead of just having a couple simple lines. I wanted it to be just a tiny bit more intricate because I do plan on body working the floors on the inside, the outside, the underneath. Pretty much everything's going to get molded and custom painted. I want this thing to be like a full-blown showstopper and be able to drive it. So for this section of the floor here, they had the original stamping of the floor that kind of came up and went over and flanged down. I wanted it a little stiffer, like I showed you on the other side. So I've just got some straight up, box wall tubing here that, I bought from a local sheet metal supply store as scrap, about $2.50 a pound. It's a bit tougher than just, your standard 18 gauge sheet metal. So I figured it'd be perfect for the sidewall. So I'm going to do some measuring out on here. I'm going to do a couple little cut sections to sleeve it basically underneath the stock floor pan, and then it'll be welded to the side like I did on the other side of the floor pan. So it'll kind of have that cascade effect like it does from the factory. So give me a second. I'm going to start marking this stuff off and cutting it into shape and go from there. Okay, welcome back everybody. So I spent the past probably about an hour and a half just doing some trimming, fitting, and ultimately getting this pan kind of ready to go in. So I ended up trimming the back side a little tiny bit. I just threw the corners up onto my English wheel and kind of tipped them just a little tiny bit more to conform to the floor pan, like the trans tunnel area. And with just a little snip here, a little snip there, trim, I ended up taking that that piece, as you can see here, I cut it down, and what I did is I left a section that goes back further on the underside. So I just kind of channeled off the bottom, and I did the same to go over the actual mounting position. I lifted up the inner kick panel sections that I had already, welded into place before. I didn't weld the floor part where it connects to the floor pan. So I've just got to basically get everything prepared, get some epoxy on the back sides of all this stuff before I can't get access to it for the meantime. This truck is going back down to the guys over at Acme, over near, it's in Temperance near Toledo. They're the guys that have been hand building my chassis and installing the motor, completely designed all the suspension for the front and rear. They've already pre-fit the cab, but they're asking for me to get it back. So once I get the truck back in its entirety, I'll kind of get the bugs out of it a bit, and then I'm going to put this on a rotisserie. And from that point, then I'll be cleaning up all the bottom sides of the floors and everything. Anything that I didn't get, probably replacing the undersides of these rockers. So the outside of the rockers are in good shape. I did have to create like a cab corner section for the back here. But other than that, like most of the back end of the cab and the inside was like in like really primo shape. So I just, once I get it back underneath these sections here, I'm going to take the pan that was like made from the factory and remove all the spot welds. I will probably hammer form using like a template. I will probably hammer form all the flanges and make a brand new piece, put a couple beads in it, something to maybe show off a little bit. And then I will be media blasting the inner structures of these areas from the underneath once it's on a rotisserie. And then basically, welding it, seam sealing everything. After this stage of the floor pan getting welded in, my next step is I'm going to be resanding down the entire cab on the inside and outside to remove any traces of like this acid, which just basically has been cleaning the metal. Up here in Michigan, it's transitioning between spring and summer right now. So there's been a lot of rain, a lot of humidity in the air. So I've been like constantly blasting this thing with acid to keep any corrosion from like restarting and, on the entire cab. So I just kind of leave the acid on there and lets it kind of create a shell, and then I just have to buzz it all back off. Like you can see some of these areas where they have acid that looks kind of gray and dingy, and then parts that I've been regrinding back to have clean metal to work on. So anyway, hope you find this interesting. I'll probably be posting a couple other videos. Just so you know, I am a custom painter, but I do fabricate, I do body work, I do pretty much everything that there is to do with a vehicle. I did hire a couple of my friends to help me with this build just because my schedule is so insane that I have not had time to like build my own vehicles. So this was already a huge, I don't know, you guys, you would say a stab in my schedule for other people's work to do all that, plus working full time up at A&D. So anyway, hope you stay tuned for some more progress. After I get all this stuff cleaned up, I will probably be making a video of how I basically am just going to be laying epoxy straight over all the bare metal after it's cleaned up, in just to kind of preserve the metal. That's the way you do it before you do body work. That way there's no corrosion that can start from the condensation of your fillers, etc. So we'll get more in depth at that on another video. Thanks for looking.